Shrimp boats is a common, their sails are inside. Shrimp boats is a common, there's dancing tonight. Why don't you hurry, hurry, hurry home?
Thank you for tuning in to the Mile High Show. This is Matt Santos, and you are listening to episode number... Did I get it right? 154? Does that sound about right? I've been a little off the last couple of weeks. Yeah, episode 154. This is strictly a personal and selfish episode, I think. Well, I guess all of mine are, but when you own the microphone and the recorder, it's all about me, I guess. So, I had some family in town a couple of weeks ago, some family I haven't seen in many years, and as it tends to do when we have visitors in this part of the state, much of it revolves around where are we going to eat and what our next meal is going to be, and while we're eating that meal, we're discussing things like where we're going to have our next meal. So after a few days of bouncing around and seeing the sights and eating the food of the Prescott area, we did a trip up to Flagstaff as well. It was a lot of fun. We ended up at my sister's house, and I just decided to plug in my mic. So what you're going to hear is portions of a fairly lengthy conversation. I typically don't do a lot of editing for these shows. We usually just plug the mics in and let it run, but this time we talked for about 2.5 hours, well over 2 hours. Myself, my mother, Mary Santos, and my two aunts, my mom's younger sisters, Lucy and Bea. And we just sat around the table at my sister's house, my sister Mag's house out there in Paulden, Arizona, and just talked. A lot of laughing, a lot of meandering conversation that doubled back on itself and repeated itself a lot. So I think I cut out most of that. And then, of course, I cut it down for just time and digestion. We're a little over an hour on this portion here. I shrunk it down a little more because as we are rebroadcast each and every Sunday at podcastradionetwork.net, they like us to keep it right at an hour. So this is a little extended by 5 or 8 minutes, something like that. At podcastradionetwork.net is a 1-hour version of this same show. I'll apologize. Well, you know what? I'm not going to apologize. Well, most of when I record are on location. I've recorded at some very loud bars and nightclubs, out in parks, in cars, on the street, and none of those, including recording during live music events, is quite as noisy as this episode. I'm not sure what was going on in the background at my sister's house. Either my sister and my son Anthony were building an addition to the house. There was a lot of hammering and pounding, or they were running a full-on baseball game. I'm not quite sure, but lots of noise in the background, lots of jumping in by other people talking and stuff. But primarily, it's myself, my Auntie Lucy, and my Auntie Bea, with Mom jumping in every once in a while. We had to pause a couple of times. We had to stop recording as my mom's heart monitor started going off. So we had to pause for that. My son jumped up and wanted to talk about something breaking. Flower, I don't know, something broke. And then we took it a little extended break when a 5-gallon water jug fell down and hit him in the head. But everybody's okay. Everybody survived. And we had a nice, fun conversation. The bulk of the conversation has to do with what it was like growing up in a house of 11 kids in a 2-bedroom house in the San Francisco Bay Area, the East Bay, in San Leandro, California, through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. My grandfather, who I never met, my mom's pop, passed away when he was 42, and he 42 years old. The father of 11 kids, 11 that lived. There was a couple that died early on. You'll hear a little bit about that. But 11 kids ranging from, I think it was like 19 or 20 years old, to my Uncle Marty in the service overseas. to a brand new newborn son, my Uncle Sal. So at 42 years old, he had 11 kids. I cannot imagine what that was like. But you'll hear what it was like for these three young girls growing up in the late 40s and 50s, and through the ever-changing political and economic climate of the Bay Area 60s. You'll hear about economic trials. You'll hear about racial inequality and interracial marriages, all kinds of stuff. So sit back, and I hope you enjoy, again, like I said, a very personal and selfish episode. It was just an excuse to sit down and chat with my mom and my aunts for episode 154. All of our episodes are available at milehighshow.com. So check the archives there. You'll see some of my conversations with a lot of different folks. And, of course, you will also see the Amazon link. Click that Amazon link at milehighshow.com to be directed to your Amazon or Amazon page, Amazon Prime login page, just like you normally do. But what it does is it tells Amazon that you got there through us, and we get a little thank you at the end. So please use that Amazon banner. There's a couple there. There's on the top. There's on the bottom of every page. They're right there on the front page. Use that Amazon banner for all your online shopping as a way to support me. Make sure I don't have to come to your house and borrow money. Also, there is an Audible button right there where you can click on that, use the code MILEHIGH at checkout for a free audio download and a free 30-day trial. They have over 180,000 audio titles, from audio books, special content, podcasts, comedy, essays, magazine articles, a little bit of everything. At audible.com, use the code MILEHIGH at checkout for your free audio download. Absolutely free. And again, they thank us a little bit at the end of every month. Also, BarkBox. Happy pets make happy households. You can get free goodies and treats for your furry friends by using that link for BarkBox at milehighshow.com. So don't forget, milehighshow.com, where you can do Amazon shopping. You can get a free audio download, and you can get free stuff for your pets. And you can enjoy all of those while listening to my crazy aunts. I think the first question is, how many bottles did you guys go through this week? Man.
You're asking the wrong girl.
Yes.
Ask Magda. She did all the opening.
No.
I like how she gets those really nice $8 bottles of wine and fills them with the cardboard box she has out back.
They weren't $8. They were $4.99. Okay.
Last time she had a drinking accident, it was a paper cut from opening the box. Okay, Beatrice, talk about. I want to hear about, because we've always heard stories of Mom growing up.
Yeah.
And just like now, we're never quite sure, was that in a movie you saw, or was that?
Let me tell you.
I want you guys to tell us about growing up.
So let me start out in the house that I knew, and I was 1 or 2, just a toddler when they moved to San Leandro from Dakota. So that's the only house I knew, and I was there until I was 19 or 20. But it was a 2-room house, front room and a bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, front room, kitchen, and there was 10 children and 2 adults.
Now, where was this house?
In San Leandro on
Whereabouts?
Estabrook, 537 Estabrook Street.
Estabrook.
And Estabrook runs parallel to Marina Boulevard.
Don't forget to ask me questions, too.
No, jump in. There's no question. Just jump in. It's a conversation.
So
I didn't want to interrupt your chewing. So, where is that house still there?
it was torn down within the last 30 years or so.
Now, how long was that house in the family?
How long was it? What?
In the family? How long did somebody from the family live there?
No.
When we sold the house, no.
See the line?
Yeah, we sold the house and moved to Clark Street.
Okay. So what years when you said you were?
I was 19.
No. When you moved there, you were born there, or you were born?
No, we moved there. I was
were a
told I
baby?
was somewhere between a year and 2 years old.
Okay. So who was that? Would have been you up, or was Manuel already born?
No.
Manuel's 3 years younger than me. He
Okay.
was born. Manuel, Lola, and Chava grew up in that house.
Now, what was the neighborhood like there?
Oh my goodness! It was. We would live between two railroad tracks, so we grew up hearing the trains all the time, and waving to the hobos and and.
Is that how you met Dad? So what was the neighborhood that you got?
Well, there were a lot of kids. A lot of kids, and San Leandro was a Portuguese town. It was
Yeah.
founded by well, you don't know
Yeah.
that. and so the school we went to was Lincoln School, first of all. And Lincoln School, I remember it being all Portuguese or white, and I remember that there was a family, the Lopez family, had a bunch of kids like we did, and I just remember that family and us being there, and there was a Chinese boy that was in my class, and maybe one other student came. While I was still in second or third grade, that was Mexican. But otherwise, I remember it was all white and Portuguese. So I felt out of place. And what the story was that we moved to San Leandro because Papa knew there was a Catholic school there, and he had wanted us to go to a Catholic school. And we were there for many years before I got to go to Catholic school. And when my father died is when I started Catholic school. No, it was even after that because when Father Ryan, who was the pastor at the Catholic church that we went to, he came to visit Mom, and he saw all these kids running around, and he said, "Why aren't they in the Catholic school?" And I remember so clearly, my mother said, "There was never room for us." And what did that mean? There was never room for the Mexican children. And I knew that so clearly then. And my father died when I was 9 years old. So I knew that very clearly when that was said.
At a very young age.
Yes. And so, and I didn't start at the Catholic school, St. Leander's, till I was in the 7th grade. And again, when I started school in the 7th grade, it was the same thing. My mother was good friends with the woman that used to be the laundress at the school for the nuns. She used to do their laundry, and so. But I got in because I'm sure Father Ryan made sure that I don't know how I was chosen to be the first one, but maybe they had room in the 7th grade at that time. So, but I remember very clearly that's why. And I didn't know anything about racism.
Yeah.
And I still didn't know, but I knew what.
You knew your family was different.
Yes.
As opposed to the general population in the area.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, were you bilingual household completely? all Spanish in the house? What separated you other than
the bunch of kids?
Yeah.
There were other families with 4 or 5 kids, but there was 10 of us.
Yeah.
Until Pop, died and Chava was born. But you asked about the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
The really cool thing about our neighborhood was that we were in between 2 sets of tracks, but we were also a dead end street.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in those days, a lot of the families didn't have cars, and if they did, there was only 1 car to a family.
Yeah.
So they all came down from 2 blocks up down to our street at night to play kickball, kick the can, red light, green light, baseball, or whatever, because there was very few cars coming through there because we were on a dead end street.
And a dead end, so that
and
block was the playground.
Right. And besides, there was a whole bunch of playmates in our house. So, but the other thing was that all the parents during the summer, all the parents would be sitting outside on the steps and all the kids playing on the street. So it wasn't, it was really, really quite good in that sense.
Yeah. Different time altogether.
A very much a different time. What Luz was saying about the hobos, they were quite a bit around in those days because it was after the Second War.
Yeah.
And that's what I remember. And Papa was always someone who would offer food if they came to the back door. But Pop always wanted to invite them in, and Mom said no. But she made them food, and things like that. And I remembered this recently and said it to somebody because the train tracks on the right side of our house was the tracks that carried passengers, and that's where the troop trains during the Korean War passed by, and the guys would be hanging out the windows, and we'd be all on the porch. I remember Juana and your mom and me and Lupi and all of us out there waving at all of the guys passing by on the train. I remember that so distinctly. And remember all the jets that used to come over because of Alameda.
Close to the air base.
We were close to the air base and all that sort of stuff. And Luz is right. Father Ryan was the one that actually started getting us in.
Yeah.
And he made sure to tell Mom not to worry about the money so much because that was the other big issue, of course. So when she got in, because the school only went up to the 8th grade, so Lupi was already in high school, kind of thing. And I was the next one to get in, and I started in 6th grade. But then Manuel, Lola, and Chava started from first on up.
So they were
they went through the whole 8th grades there.
So who were your friends growing up? What were some of the ones? And are any of them still around?
Yeah.
In touch with them?
But the family, there's a family with boys, and Sonny was the boy's name, and I don't remember. Bobby, I think, was the other one. And Sammy next door, family, Auntie Flo's brother, youngest brother. Sammy was our playmate as well, because they were just next door. Because remember, everybody married neighbors.
Where was the Santos clan in this?
Yes.
Behind and over one. And over one.
Because we were right here, and Flo's family was right here next to the track, and then Herman's family was next door.
The Limas?
Yeah, the Limas. So I guess Mary was, not Mary, but Juana was the first one to get married. But it was very different back then because they were never allowed to go out on dates unless Lupe or Bea, were you with them too?
I'm trying to, I think once or twice. I was pretty little at the time. But somebody else had to be with them.
The dueñas, the little girl dueñas.
Dueñitas.
Well, I want to hear about because I know what San Leandro was like before we moved out here. I mean, I did a lot of work there, and then obviously with Dad working there for so many years,
right?
We'd see, but to me, it was it wasn't. All the towns kind of blended in. You go Hayward, San Lorenzo, San Leandro, it all kind of blended. I saw it after a lot of growth, especially
Correct.
in the late 60s, early 70s, when it ballooned up to just blend into neighborhoods that all looked alike. What was it like?
That's not so. That's not so. Like any other big city, there was a demarcation street, and that was Bancroft. And above Bancroft were all the nice houses, and only white people lived there.
Yeah.
But I did not feel the same thing that Luz felt, and that's because a lot of my friends were Portuguese, and I looked the same as them. The only time I recognized the difference was when one of my white girlfriends, and I never saw them that way, came over, and with all of us kids, Mom had a bedspread on top of the couch, try and keep it clean and all that. And it was hanging this way and that, and there's all kinds of kids running in and out. And the first thing that she said is, "Ooh, I like your house. It's so comfortable." But she grew up in a house where nobody could sit in the parlor unless there was company. So it was a very different attitude and stuff like that. But it was a period when you can walk around, take walks at night, which we did a lot of. The nicest thing was those memories of playing outside.
Yeah.
And the side of our house, we didn't have lawn. There was no lawn. It was dirt, but it was fine dirt, and it was perfect for playing marbles, digging the little holes. And so our neighbors from behind, remember...
Escobars.
Yes, the Escobars. They would come over, and we'd be either playing marbles, making mud pies, or running. Wherever. The interesting part about it is that one of our neighbors across the street was Japanese. And, of course, this was right after the war. And what did I know? But I would go over there. The mom would let me play with him. His name was Hiroshi. That's all I remember. I don't know if you remember them or not.
And there was a little girl, too.
I don't remember that. It's the boy was my age, and so that's why I would go over there. He was allowed to play in front of the house, but not outside the fence.
Yeah.
But what did I know? I didn't realize why at that point in time. And at that point, then we had the Cruzes moved in way down the street, and they were Filipino. So we were allowed to play with them, and they had like a half a dozen kids or something like that.
But I think the mom was Mexican or something else. She was not Filipino.
I don't know. I don't know. But at any rate, we were able to play with him until one of the girls got pregnant. And then we weren't allowed to play.
Priscilla.
Was it Priscilla? Okay. And I think she was like 16 or 17, something like that. She was young. She was a girl. But there was a lot of going back and forth, and those old-fashioned things about going next door and borrowing a cup of this or that or whatever, that was true. That was true. And the Iceman, because we had ice boxes, not refrigerators. So the Iceman would come with a block of ice. And then, of course, with all of us kids, he would take his ice pick and chip off big chunks of ice for us to suck on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But everything came to us. So the Iceman came to us, the cleaners, you give him your clothes. He'd come in a van and you pick up your dirty clothes and then bring back your clean clothes. The bakery guy would come on Fridays. Remember him in the red truck?
But back to the Iceman. Auntie Juana and the Iceman had a thing going on. They would always flirt with each other.
But keep in mind, because my dad was still around, she wasn't allowed to date or any of that stuff. But, I mean, in those days, life was easier. The milkman came.
Yeah.
And all of these people knew that there was a lot of kids in our house. And every so often, the bakery man would give Mom an extra loaf of bread or something and all that kind of stuff.
Or give Auntie Juana a lemon meringue pie.
There you go. And the milkman did that, too. Every once in a while, he'd leave an extra quart of milk or whatever. And that was the kind of thing people did back then because it was an individual.
The milkman used to come into the
Right.
and put them in the...
But
Come into the house?
Yeah.
Now, they can do that now, but you got to call a cop.
I don't remember that one.
But it was
Right there. What are you talking about?
But it was
What
an
do you
interesting
know?
life. And after Pop died and Marty got out of the service, Marty was in the service, actually.
When did
He
you
was
go
in the Air Force. He was, what, 19, 18? No, he was younger than that. He must have been
I
18.
remember when he said, "Oh boy, I want to go kill Japs."
No, that wasn't Marty. No, that was our uncle.
Hinado?
That was Uncle Lazario. But
It could have been you, Ma.
Lázaro, whatever. But Marty was there for the Korean during
War.
the Korean
so he
time.
went in after.
He went in after.
So when
He
was
never saw action. He
when
never
was he
saw
born?
action. I don't know. He was
Okinawa.
86 last year. So
I
30.
can't do math.
No,
I
wait.
can't-
I think he was. Yes, he was born in 1930, I believe, because he was born at the beginning of the decade.
Okay.
And Mom was 36. She
Yeah.
was born in 36.
Right.
So he was 30. He went in 19, so 49-ish? 49,
yeah,
50,
48,
49, 50.
He was already in when I was 4, so
Okay.
whatever that is.
And Papa died when he was 52. No, 42.
42.
Oh, wow.
So he
Papa
was
was
very
really young.
young.
Yeah.
And that's the when Chava was born.
Yeah.
Just 2
But-
months.
Okay,
Oh,
let
wow.
me finish this thought because what I was trying to say was that Marty was overseas. He was shipped over to Okinawa. And when Papa got very, very ill, they called him back to come see Pop. But he didn't make it in time to see
Oh.
him. Papa died that morning just before he got there. And so what they did is they sent him, I can't remember, he told me, but they brought him back to California so he'd be close to the family
Yeah.
until he got out. And when he got out, I don't know if you knew this, but Uncle Marty had a horse. He worked at the ranches up on Skyline.
Oh, wow.
And one time he brought a horse. I don't know if you remember this. He brought a horse all the way to San Leandro so he could give us all
He rode it.
rides.
He rode
He
it.
rode the horse from Skyline down to San Leandro to do that.
You don't think of Oakland as horse country.
I know, but up on Skyline there
Yeah.
are ranches that have been
Yeah.
there for a long time. You know.
What's
So-
that park that's up? Well, I don't know if it's Skyline, but up there.
Redwood Park.
No, there's another one up there. I forget.
But
But it was so exciting to have
Beautiful
yeah,
area.
yeah.
to have your brother come down with a horse. Oh my
wearing
God.
a cowboy hat too, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So that was really cool.
Nice.
So even though we did, and I've shared this with other people before, I was 14 before I knew we were poor.
Yeah.
I knew we didn't have a lot, but we never starved. We
Yeah.
always had company. We always had playmates. We, you know, yeah, we wore hand-me-down clothes. That was okay, but it wasn't until I was 14 where I had to have money to take the bus to go to high school that I realized, oh, we are poor, aren't we? But I think that's a testament to how families were back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Real. It sounds like a real sense of community in the neighborhood.
The fun times we had.
Yes.
Like what? Tell me some of the fun.
Well, I would take you, girl, because I always the girl that you girls would do, you know, what I wanted us to do.
Right.
Yes, always.
All
you
the
were
time.
You were pushy back then too.
She was the boss then. Too.
Yes.
No. Our mother would say, you know, go outside and play. Well, I used to think, well, they want to have fun too. And so I made my heart say, I'm going to help them to have fun.
Yeah.
So, wait, my turn?
No,
Go ahead.
not yet. I want to say because I was going to say this before about your mom. The one thing that I really, really remember is you have to understand there would be 5 or 6 kids in one bedroom. And she would, on Saturday mornings in those days, all the kids' programs were on the radio.
Yeah.
So we'd all lie in bed and hear them. And when we listened to everything, then she would tell us stories. She would tell us stories, and we'd stay in bed all kind of listening. And we would expect she was the storyteller for us all the time.
Was when we were growing up too.
Oh, right, okay. And she used to dress us up and have us do shows. Used to do
All right,
that
I got to hear a show. Tell me about a show. Tell me about a show.
I do. I remember one specific one.
Wait. She dressed us up in curtains, old curtains, and made shoes for us, and put makeup on us, and she told us what to do exactly.
Tell me.
Okay.
Go ahead, B.
What Luz said, and I never forgot this. It was a Saturday, and Mom was gone. I was 8, maybe somewhere around there. And she made the boys go out, Manuel and Chava, leave the house. And the bigger boys were gone. So it was just us girls in there. And Lupe used to sing a song called Shrimp Boats Are Coming.
Radio?
Yes. But then I used to dance. She put a sheer curtain on me, and I was supposed to do all the dancing. And then
That's the important thing.
and Manuel and Chava, being the scamps that they were, there was the water pipe outside of the house with a window by the front room. And of course, all of a sudden, we heard all this giggling and laughing. Manuel had shinned himself up to look in through the window because they weren't allowed to come in with us.
I think we used to lock them out of the
Yes,
house.
we did.
The boys can play outside.
But your mom used to choreograph.
Oh,
So
yeah.
dramatic.
No, I wanted to have. I felt for you, children. Me, your daughter.
I knew that.
You said real life dolls. That's it. She tries to make it all about you. No, I was thinking about you and the fun you needed.
She was.
That's exactly where I felt. My heart felt that you should always have a good time too.
I felt that because you made sure that we had a good time.
Yeah.
And the storytelling that you did and the shows that you had us put on. I don't remember quite what I did, but but I was...
Let me finish. Jeez, I raised my hand for crying out loud.
But you're...
I raised my hand.
There's going to be a fight.
Go, finish.
She's always even the other night.
Will you control your sisters?
They're older ladies now.
Yes, but the other night...
Just finish your story, because we're
Stop
doing
it.
this. We're doing this.
Well, the fight is part of it. Because she's always interrupting me.
I did this. That's all I did.
But
We'll get to the whole drive out here. I think that's going to be...
the drive was fine. No fight.
She slept.
I had...
Okay, go ahead. What? Yeah, I forgot now.
I forgot to. I want to go back to all the neighbors that we had that intermarried.
That sounds bad.
Yeah.
That what you guys did.
Hey, get it closer.
But Herman and Juana were the first ones to get married, and they had a great big wedding, but they weren't allowed to date very much beforehand. And Mom was on her own by then because Pop had already died, and I know she had an argument with Juana when she knew that they were going to get married, but when Juana came to tell her that they had set a date and they were going to get married, oh my goodness, it's not funny, but Mom started to have a fit and get very angry at her because she said that everybody's leaving me, and I'm sure she was feeling Pop leaving her, but she was the first one to get married, and she felt deserted.
What year was this? When did Juana get married?
what, 50 something, in the early 50s.
Early 50s?
Well, Danny was 61 when he died, and he was about 62 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the early 50s.
Yeah.
You'll.
Mom got married in 58
Oh,
Yeah.
how do you know that?
because I was born in 59.
Okay, good. Thank you.
She counted.
Yeah.
And she remembers.
I don't know how many
So,
years.
so who got married next? Who was after Juana?
And after Juana was Bill, Uncle Bill, and he married. Yes,
She interrupted you. You didn't say a word.
she can interrupt any time she wants.
No, it was close. It was
They can forget together.
That wasn't nice. That wasn't nice. That wasn't nice.
I'm going to get a popcorn bowl across my hand, aren't I?
Juana married Herman.
Yes.
And I married Ernest. It was
Yeah.
behind Bill. I mean,
So is that the order that it went?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's the right
Yeah.
order. She
That's
knows.
the order.
So, so
So what, nobody else was interested in any of the other Santos boys?
No, they were all too much. No, okay, so wait. That's true because I love Sonny.
Leonard?
Sonny was quite handsome and he was very kind to me.
And he
as
was
a
a-
little kid.
Yeah.
and he was a baseball player. Holy
Yes.
shit!
Yeah, but because your uncles used to play, your uncles used to play horseshoes on the empty lot. Well, they owned it, the empty lot next to Flo's house. And so when I saw them, and if it was sunny, I was out there.
And how old were you? How old were you? When you
5, 6, somewhere in there.
Well, they were all older.
I love Sonny.
oh, really?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing, something else about how your mom helped us, and it's when Marty was already gone in the Air Force, and we talked about this the other day. We went on a carpenter's picnic, and we went
Yeah.
up this big hill, but we slid down on cardboards on one time, and so she would help me. She would write the letters that I wanted to send to Marty. So I was like 4, and she'd say, okay,
Yeah.
what do you want to say next? Okay, I would tell him that we slid down the hill, blah, blah, blah. So she helped me do that. So there was, even through the tumultuous, the arguments and everything else when I got married, there was always a connection with Marty. And, that
Yeah.
was somewhat mended years later, but yeah. And you didn't notice that we didn't say anything about Marty getting married.
haven't got there yet.
He's the oldest, though.
Yeah.
We didn't know whether he was married or not.
Well,
When did he get married?
not until he met Millie. And Millie was the first one he
Okay,
married.
the other one he was living with.
Yes. I mean, I don't think that's
Scandalous.
for the air, but
It's a true story.
it doesn't matter. His son is still here. I don't know
It's
how
okay.
much his son knows.
Nobody listens.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's interesting because I think Marty really did not like to be around all these messy kids. And even his son, I mean, Mark comes over every so often, and he said, oh, my dad was like, everything had to be neat and clean and put away and this and that. But it comes from all of
Yeah.
that. Being the oldest of that many kids comes from it.
So,
So back to the marriages, because Juana had this huge wedding, and all her. I was not in the wedding. We were too young, but you were in the wedding. Yes, and Herman's sister, one sister or two sisters were in the wedding, but there were about 9 or 10 bridesmaids.
my goodness.
And I think that's the wedding where they all had a different colored dress.
Your dad wore your mother's dress for Halloween one time. Okay, so you want to talk? Wait, you want to talk about truth? The truth is that we never talked about the fact that Herman's mom never wanted them to get married.
Really?
Really, and really didn't like that whole thing, whether it was racial. One of the things was they always used to say she was too fat. at that time, and that was a big thing. And there was a lot of dissension for years and years. And matter of fact, there was a lot of the family did not talk to them for a long time. There was a brother and a sister that did keep in contact with him.
But he did have a sister that was heavy too, Lorraine.
Yeah, but she wasn't heavy then. She was heavy later.
I remember
she was
her
later
heavy all the time.
And what was so weird, not weird, but it's probably commonplace, because his mom always had a grumpy look on her face. Do you remember Mrs. Lima having her mouth was always turned down? She always had a scarf on and stuff. But guess who took care of her when she was sick before they died?
Juana.
She stayed with Juana and Herman. Yeah. Yep. I always thought, that's how it goes. You maybe not want this girl because she's not good enough for your son or whatever, but who took you in when you needed it?
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That was a very interesting thing.
Back to the school years, when I got to St. Leander's, it was very interesting because I remember I got to school and I didn't have a uniform. I didn't have the shoes I was supposed to have. There was a girl whose father had a shoe shop, and the Sister Marguerite was the principal then, and she talked the girls, the young girl in 7th grade, to take me to her father's shoe shop and get me shoes. And I remember the argument she was having with her father to give me a pair of shoes, and I was going to get my shoes. And I didn't feel anything embarrassing about it, but I did get my shoes, and I know the girl had to argue with her father about it. And back to Gracie, who was my mother's best friend, and her 2 children, younger children, were in the school already. Marcella and Enrique, I think. Henry Enrique were the only other Mexican kids in the school at the time. Until everybody else came along for my family. And Mom would send me with the tuition regularly. And at one point, Sister Marguerite said, tell your mother you don't send any more money. And so I imagine that we all went tuition free after that, but I'm not sure.
As long as Father Ryan was there, I think we did, because he's the one that made sure we got to the school. And at that point, there was only 5 of us that went through this. Only 5 of us went through school.
Half the family.
Half the campus.
But that was it. And I remember I wasn't ever comfortable at Lincoln School. But then I remember when I got to St. Leander's, it was a totally different story, because I immediately made friends. But once I got to St. Leander's, 2 girls immediately befriended me. And they were both Barbara Mendez and Barbara Souza, both Portuguese girls. And they were my good friends for the 2 years I was there. And I would go over Barbara Mendez's house, and you knew her sister.
Her sister was in my class.
So we would sometimes do homework together. The 3 Barbers would do homework together. But I'll never remember how that happened. I all of a sudden had friends, and good friends, and that was wonderful. And when I graduated from the 8th grade, Uncle Bill stood in for Papa. At the graduation, he did the father-daughter dance with me, and people my girlfriends in the school were wondering who that young, handsome guy was.
Well, what year did you graduate from high school?
From high school, 1960. So it's been a long time.
And what about you? What was
62?
62. What was? Where did you go to high school? Now the St. Leandros went to
St. Elizabeth.
They went to 8th grade.
No, we went to St. Elizabeth High in Oakland.
But St. Leandro's went to 8th, is
Yeah,
that correct?
yeah.
And then
Yes.
high school at
Yeah.
St. where?
St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth?
St. Elizabeth.
Commercial break, yes, sir.
Flower pot fell down.
Well, that's Auntie's problem. That ain't my problem. You're playing with Auntie. It's her house. Okay, commercial break over. I'm sorry, so you went to high school where?
To high school in St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth.
All of the girls, Barbara Souza decided to try out for Bishop O'Dowd High School, and that was supposed to be the high school for the wealthy kids.
Mm-hmm. That's where your boys went, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I
Band
showed
program.
him.
Yeah.
showed them.
Yeah.
But Barbara Mendes tried out for St. Elizabeth's, and she didn't make it. And because you have to pass a test, and if you don't pass the test,
Yeah.
you don't get in. So I got to go to St. Elizabeth's, and there were 5 boys from my class that went to St. Elizabeth's as well.
How did the area change when you guys were going through high school? Did you see a major change from the elementary and junior high into high school as the 60s started creeping up a little bit?
Well, the major change that we saw in the cities was the white flight started. White flight from the neighborhoods because people of color were allowed to buy houses in certain areas, and that's when we saw the white flight. Because when I was a freshman in high school, High Street was all white and considered like one of the better parts of town kind of stuff.
High Street, wow.
Yeah. But then as soon as, housing laws changed
Yeah.
and people of color were able to buy in all areas, that made a big difference. So we saw a lot of that white flight. But when I was in high school, and I had lots of friends and stuff, but in high school, there was probably only 5 people of color. Just a few of us Mexicans. Well, actually, no, I take that back. It's closer to 10. And my class was one of the biggest classes going in, which was like 118 students or something like
That's
that.
good
Very
size,
small.
yeah.
But the thing was that for the majority of us, it wasn't a problem at all. The biggest problem was finding the dime to catch the bus to and from school. That's when I discovered we were poor.
Yeah.
Because there was many a time when I went to the bus stop without any money in my hand to get home, and then hoping to find somebody there that I could borrow a dime
Yeah.
from to get home.
Now, what was the bus trip like to school? How
It was
far?
about a half hour?
Yeah, about a half
40
hour.
minutes.
34th Avenue from
Oakland. You know where Auntie
San
Nupi
Leandro.
lives?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where the school and the church is on 34th Avenue. And we were in San Leandro by Marina.
Oh, wow.
So that was a trip. But I made a lot of friends. In fact, I'm still friends with one of the girls I met there.
Nice,
And we
nice.
talk and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of nice. And the best friend that I had in elementary school was another girl that was just as shy as I was, if not more.
You were shy?
I'm allowed doesn't mean I'm not shy. There's a difference. So yes, I was exceedingly shy. I was telling somebody, I said the first date I went on, I didn't say a word the entire night. I didn't.
Who was that?
That was me.
No,
Who were you?
No, I know what she was saying.
She's gonna ignore.
It was one of the estrellas.
Where'd you go?
We went to a carnival. I didn't even
could've just
scream
stayed
or
home.
anything.
You
I
could've just
we
stayed home and
I
been
know,
at a
I
carnival.
know. We just smiled at each other, and it was his brother-in-law. I don't remember who he was married to. That gave us a ride there and back.
Yeah.
Because we were 14, I guess, maybe, or something
Which
like
is
that.
style? Alvino?
It was, I think it was Alvino. Yeah, he was about my age. Do you remember the Estrellas? They had as many kids, if not more, than
They had
us.
more.
I think
kids.
they had more.
14, I think.
Yeah. So we all had playmates. Then some. But that was the thing. I mean, we played outside and, there was no restrictions in that sense.
Yeah.
Mom was concerned about the hobos, but in the most part, they were just guys coming back from the service that were kind of a little bit lost, but we never recognized it as such at the time. And we walked from our house to go to church, we walked down the railroad tracks.
The track was everything.
Yes. And in those days, I remember being late for church, and I was 6, maybe, walking to church by myself.
By yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah, we did a lot of things back then that we wouldn't allow our children to do at all nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, so.
So both of you stayed primarily in the East Bay. How come?
I had a good experience in high school, but it was true about the people of color. When I started school, I was placed in the college track because they didn't know I was Mexican. Had to take Latin and algebra, and I don't remember what other class, but Latin was the one. Everybody else took Spanish. And I remember the principal, his name was Father Ronald. I went to the principal, and I asked to be put in the Spanish class. He said, no, you already know Spanish, assuming that I was bilingual, but I wasn't really. And I remember thinking at that time and later, like I had to give him credit for not changing me, because he kept me in the college track. When they had some counselors or somebody come from the outside to tell us what we were best suited for. And I remember the woman that was talking to me, she told me that I was suited for office work, and that's what. But I'm sure there was something else on there, but she looked at me and didn't say that. And that's when I kept being reminded I was different.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't try to do other things. For the second time, I realized, didn't know the word racism, didn't know anything about that.
Did you go to college?
No, I got a job. I got a job with the county, and I became what you called a stenographer. I don't think that there's any such thing anymore.
Shorthand's a foreign language now.
Right. But that's what I became, and that's where I met my ex-husband.
I was going to say, is that where you met Ken?
Yeah.
You didn't marry somebody from the neighborhood. Did you break ranks?
Soon after I met him, he bought a Porsche. But he was good looking at the time.
Aside from the blonde hair, what was his hair?
At the time.
Did he have long hair back then or no?
Long hair?
Yeah.
No, he was...
I always remember him with long hair.
That was after...
Long hair and a headband, hanging
Long
out in the
hair-
bleachers at the Coliseum.
That was him. That was after...
Yeah.
After, but... and he wore raggedy clothes. But that...
My hippie Uncle Ken is what I remember Ken looking like.
But-
Where'd you run away to, B? You're next. So how many dates did you go on before you spoke?
Oh, you're talking to me? Yeah, because I went to a dance and didn't speak either. It wasn't until, was it senior year, junior or senior year, that I met someone, and he's the one that kind of got me out of my shell, and I dated him for a year or so. And that was fun. He was a musician, which was like, oops.
Ooh. Fast.
Yeah,
What
pretty
did he play?
much.
What did he play?
He played piano and a couple other instruments, mostly piano though.
What kind of music? Where
Latin.
Latin. Oh, Latin.
Yeah, Latin kind of music.
So what'd you do after high school?
I went to work, and I went to St. Elizabeth High, so I went through some of the same things, but the one thing that happened, went through the whole counseling thing and stuff, but they gave us a test first and sort of, those tests that say, the aptitude, what you seem to be better at and stuff like that. And, they said that I would be better as an entrepreneur, having my own business and things like that. But I didn't believe them. But anyway, but the county used to come in and give tests for their stenographers, their secretaries, and all that stuff. And I started out on the college track. But I didn't really care too much for my classes, so I
Yeah.
didn't do as well. So then I switched over to business and did well there and did well enough to be offered a job right off the bat. So
What was your first job?
working for the county.
Yeah.
But I got there and I realized I really didn't like it. But I felt like I had to say yes. I did those days.
Yeah.
You know, having the choice to say no to a job really wasn't
Yeah.
there. But
A
so
government
they-
job, security.
Exactly, you know, family and all that sort of stuff. But they let me go, and I felt so sorry for the guy because I knew exactly what he was going to do when he called me in. But they had, you know, that little window of time where they can let you go.
Like a probationary kind of period.
And I sat down and I looked at him and I said, "Oh, he's going to fire me." And sure enough, he let me go, and it was fine with me.
What was it? What capacity were you working for the county?
I was secretary. I did steno. I did shorthand, typing letters, answering phones, and all that kind of stuff. But I realized that I didn't particularly like it the way it was set up there. And one of the ladies there was helping me out, trying to help me, you know, get me, you know, up to speed and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I realized I didn't like it.
It wasn't something that you.
No. So after that, I went.
What department did you work in?
I don't know. It was in Hayward on Winton, and there was bus service was.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So it was really hard getting there and getting home
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But after that, I went out and found a job with J.C. Penney, and that's where I met my friend. I don't know if you remember my friend Loopy Boone.
No.
Well, I was 18 when I met her, and we're still friends.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So anyway, I met her at J.C. Penney's, and I worked there for a few years. In those days, when I was interviewed, they could ask you if you were married, were you on the pill, were you planning to have babies. They could. It was at that time, it was still legal to
Yeah.
do those things. You know,
Don't hold your breath. It might be soon
I
again.
know. Again, it might come back. But at any rate, I worked at JCPenney's for a while, and then I realized that I wasn't making enough money.
Yeah.
And somebody had tuned me into a job. And in those days, it still is, but even worse in those days. And I was supporting Mom and my younger siblings.
What are we looking like? 64, 65-ish? Or
No, 63.
63? Okay.
Yeah, so I was making $57 a week back then. And it was decent
Yeah.
and
For a
all that
girl.
sort of stuff. Huh?
For a girl.
Well, yeah, let me finish. But anyway,
lit a fire.
back then, it was the men were getting more
Yeah.
regardless. And I went into the boss and I said I wanted some more money, and he said, "Well, no, you did." And I said, "Wait, so and so in the mail room, the guy was making more than I was making." It's just conversation. And he said, "Well, you know how it is. There's family." I said, "He doesn't have a family. I have a family. I'm supporting the family." And I was surprised that I did that for myself, but I did. And he said, "Well, you know, that's the way things were and all that, blah, blah, blah." So I went out looking for another job, and then I went to Western Union and worked for Western Union. Answered phones, did telegrams, then did teletype, and then ran an office and all that kind of stuff. So
How long were you there?
long enough to meet your uncle.
Okay, let's get to there. When did you meet Mr. Bernie?
64. In 1964.
And what was he doing at the time?
He had just gotten out of the Army, and so he was just doing telegram delivery.
Ah.
And so he'd stay at his substation, and he'd
So
come
you
in.
met as co-worker, working together. Okay.
Well, yeah, he'd come in.
I thought maybe he was going in and sending
Nope.
a telegram.
But I had seen him, and from the small time that I had with my dad, the first time I was aware of black people was when we went to Swan's, and Papa talked to everybody the same.
Swan.
Swan's was a store. It was like everything you can buy under one roof. On the bottom floor, you could.
Okay.
There was butcher shops, record shop, the shoe shop, the barber.
Lunch counter and so when
Everything.
Swan's lunch counter was like a
It was a
okay.
Do you know
open air
Swans?
market. It was
Yeah.
an open air market, so to speak. And then upstairs, you can buy clothes. So we did everything there.
Yeah.
And the thing was that Swan's, everybody went there,
Yeah.
regardless of the color of your skin or
Yeah.
anything like that. That was the one place where everybody was kind of equal. I saw him, and all I saw was the cute guy.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything else. And I know I was naive to a certain degree, but that's all I saw.
It's amazing how certain things need to be learned
I
that
know.
shouldn't be
No,
learned.
for sure.
Yeah.
But so I would see him come in to pick up telegrams and stuff from the guy Woody and the other guy, and one time Woody noticed that I was noticing, and so he introduced us. He was the one that introduced us. And
How did that go over? What was the climate socially for, you're saying
depending
how,
on who you were with.
Okay.
Let me
Just
put it this
go
way.
ahead.
2 brothers did not come to my wedding.
Huh.
So one was absolutely not invited, and the other one decided not to come.
Huh.
So there was a climate within the family. And oh my goodness, for Grandma, when I first brought him home, what will the neighbors think? And I said, these neighbors, I don't care. And I do remember one time when we were living on Clark Street at the time, and he and I had just gotten back from a date, and we were sitting in the car. We weren't even necking at that point. We were just talking. We were sitting in the car, and a cop car pulls up to us, shines a big spotlight into the car, and Dad, Bernie was saying, hey, turn that off, please, trying to. And he said, what are you guys doing? So, sitting in front of my house. Yeah, right. You need to leave right now, thinking that I was probably some hooker or something like that. And so we went in the house for a minute, but he was the one that was aware of that more than I was. But Mom had a problem, and then once she realized, that her problem was not going to be my problem, that was it. The one that I had a blowout session with for some hours was my brother Marty. That was his problem again. So that took a long time to get through.
But you got that.
8 years, but I used to tell him 10. And he would believe me for a while.
Repeat that again. I didn't get that.
She asked me how much older Bernie was than me.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was funny because at work we didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
In fact, we ended up having to invite more people from work than we had anticipated because they were expecting to be invited. But it was purely a family affair. His family just took me right in. There was no issue there. But again, where he was raised, his mom's best friend was the Mexican family across the street.
Yeah.
So there was quite a mixture because he was raised in Richmond.
I was going to say, what was
Yeah,
hometown
he
for
was-
him?
he-
So still East Bay, but just up a little bit.
But the family came here when he was about 6 years old from Louisiana, Nacogdoches, Louisiana. And his dad brought them all out here because it was before or after the war to work in the shipyards. And so they ended up in Richmond.
Booming industry, jobs, money. Nice.
Yeah, so he was one of 5 kids.
So when did you get married? What year?
65.
65.
Yes.
Big changes coming
Yes.
in the Bay Area specifically, but the country
Right.
overall.
Yeah, but even so, when I was engaged is when I don't know if you remember, but I had to have my appendix out. I had surgery. Dr. Velarde was my
How long did you see Dr. Velarde?
forever, and then I took
He
over.
was the only doctor for a long time, right?
I
No,
remember Dr. Velarde.
You do.
yeah. I went to him for years and years, years and
Famous
years.
guy.
Yeah,
We
he was a
all-
good doctor. He was a good doctor.
I never
But
knew.
I
anyway,
hadn't heard that name in years.
yes. So I'm in the hospital. I was in the hospital? I can't remember if it was during an appointment or what it was, but when he met Bernie, and when he and I were alone, he said something about, he said something about the difficulties of marrying somebody of another race and stuff like that. And even when we went to the church for the pre-Cana stuff, the priest said the same thing. And he said he wanted to make sure that we knew the difficulties that we would be involved and blah, 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 blah.
Other than the issues internal in the family and that stress, did you experience
Yes.
housing?
Housing was always an issue. Lots of times I just went. But if we went away for the weekend or something and we were going to stay at a motel, Dad went to go get the room. So right off the bat, they know this is a black person. And then when they saw me, that was another story.
Yeah.
And
So he hit that big hurdle.
Right off the bat. But even when the kids came along, I remember we went to look for a house, and one of the men saying, because he saw the kids, and saying, well, blah, blah, blah. And I said, forget it.
Yeah.
So for me, staying in Oakland, that meant a lot. Because Oakland was the place where we did not run into that so much in the form of housing.
As opposed to the suburbs or
Right.
something like that.
As opposed to San Leandro, too,
Yeah.
right?
No, we didn't look in San Leandro.
Well, yeah.
But we found a house in Castro Valley. So, and that didn't work.
I was
so
gonna
we
say, that
ended
would've
up.
been
No,
tough
that
now.
was the one.
That could be tough now.
Exactly. But I mean, people were concerned, and I remember a couple of friends of Auntie Lupe's that knew me. And when Lupe had talked with them and said, that I was marrying someone that was black, and she said, well, B could do better than that. So that was the mentality
Wow.
of all that. But I don't know if it was good or bad that I was naive enough to not even be concerned about that, and was not concerned until my kids were in their teens. Then I was more concerned.
In what way?
Because they would, go to certain areas, and they treated all dark kids the same way. You got to watch them. They're this, they're that, blah, blah, blah.
So watching what they had to go through trigger.
Yes, that more so than anything.
Yeah.
And but from his side of the family, no, that was never a problem. That part of it was never a problem. So it was on my side.
Tell me more in detail about his occupation. Because
Depends.
I shouldn't say we, I have, as you found out this past couple of days, my memory is not normal for lots of reasons. But I have things and conversations and experiences that I have no idea if they actually happened or if I'm remembering stories people told me or remembering going through shoe boxes full of pictures.
Right.
And in my head, they're real. And then people are going, that's not what happened. That's not what it just because I've, as the youngest, hearing stories. And then later I find out that, no, that you never even met that person. But those stories I've heard have been so real.
And you're not Apache.
I never heard that one. I never heard that part. That was just a Sal. That was just a Sal issue. Yeah. But hearing different stories of things, family reunions, weddings, whatever.
But it was the older kids.
Yeah.
That knew him, because he went to all the family functions, and then he finally said, "Your family has a party for everything," at a drop of a hat. And he finally said, "I'm done."
What did he do? What now? He
worked at a couple
he was a
of
cartoonist, wasn't he? For a while.
That's what he wanted to be.
Okay, you tell me, and then it'll fix what I forget.
He did.
That I don't know.
He worked for I forgot the name. Some electronic company. After we got married, we decided it would be okay for him to go back to school, get his AA degree, go from there. Well, of course, the minute we decided that, I got pregnant. So the day he was supposed to take his first final was the day Anais was born. And I'll never forget that, because he said, I've got a final. And I said, that's okay. Call Mom. So I called Mom. I said, Mom, Bernie's got to go to school. Will you go with me to the hospital? So we drove to San Leandro and picked her up, and then went over to, where was Anais born? Peralta Hospital. That's where. And then Mom stayed with me. Bernie went to school, and then he came back.
How did he do on his final?
He didn't. He told the teacher what was going on, and then he came back to the hospital. And by that time, I'm in labor, right?
Yeah.
And Mom's standing next to me. And so Mom says, touches him and then started to leave the room. And he's like, no, that's your job. Please. He didn't want her to leave the room because he didn't know it was going to happen. But he went to school, got his AA. He worked, I can't even remember the electronic company. He worked at BART for a little while when it was first starting up. He did a lot of photography for people. He painted really well a lot of times. We can't find his sister had some of his paintings, and when she passed away, her kids could not find them. And then some of the good ones that we had at home, I'd go in the other room and he's painting over them So Auntie Lupe has one picture that he painted for her specifically to go over the couch kind of thing, and she still has it. And that's my phone. And the other one is he did one on velvet for me. And I still have that. The velvet's kind of tearing up. If you look in the back, it's black tape holding it together. And, the last years, he pretty much stayed home with the kids. And I worked because I got better benefits and everything else. So that's the way we did it. But he'd go out and somebody would say, come take pictures of this or that. And he'd get paid for that and things here and there and whatever. So that worked out for us.
Nice.
Yeah. And then he cooked for me 25 years for 25
Did you pay the poor guy?
Oh, boo.
A roof over his head.
You got it.
Sounds like Sandra. So what are you doing now? You guys are both very active in lots of things.
Yeah. I'll take it here because when Bernie got sick is when I kind of stepped back from a lot of stuff I was doing. But all those years that I was working, I was also one of the leaders in, the organization is called OCO, Oakland Community Organization. And it was a faith-based organizing group. And we started out, it was a neighborhood group, and then it went to some of the churches to gather people from there, and that's when I came in on, and that's like 40 years ago.
And what's the mission for that?
The mission was to fix our neighborhoods.
Okay.
At that time, we were having a lot of drug dealing that was going on in front of the St. Elizabeth's Elementary and high school. So we had kids and we had a lot of old ladies and, the seniors and stuff, and so we got rid of it. We met with the chief of police and all the people that worked. And so we did a lot of things over the years. But I was really busy going to meetings 3 or 4 nights a week. Actually, Bernie got really upset because one of the meetings when we were doing, working with the police on the drug dealers and stuff, he's like, they're going to know your face. They're going to know your face.
Yeah.
But I had to do it. And,
what years were you doing this?
Let's see. The kids were in elementary school. Jeez.
Mid-70s?
70s. Yeah, that's when it was.
And
in
you
the
continued
70s.
for?
I continued up until 7 years ago.
So the working within those organizations specifically, I'm thinking what was popping into my head was mid-late 80s, 90s, when the big and violent drug activity was going on.
And that was part of the reason why Bernie was really kind of upset. But, we had to get them out of our school area and out of our church area and stuff like that. And that's what was happening. So some neighbors allowed the police to come in, set up cameras and stuff like that so that we could record. And it took us a few months to get them out. But we did. We did do it. We did a lot of things. And sometimes I'm amazed at what we did. And the big thing, I never knew that I could do that, but they taught us how to sit at the table with the mayor, with your council person, with the governor, with state senators and all those people. So within that group, it gave me an opportunity. That's where I went to New Orleans for conferences and various meetings, and Washington, D.C. to meet with, all of our elected leaders and so on. Was in a lot of meetings. Jerry Brown was our mayor. We were, So, we did a lot of things, and a lot of things that I never thought I could do. They were the ones that taught me how to do it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So no more not speaking at carnivals. You speaking out and loud.
Everything.
Shrimp folks is a-comin', there's dancing tonight. Why don't you hurry, hurry, hurry home? Why don't you hurry, hurry, hurry home? Look here, the shrimp folks is a-comin', there's dancing tonight.